So we've got $220 a month that we've just put into our pocket. What can you do with that? Well, you can invest it. Now, you can do other things with it, but if you invest $220 a month for 20 years, we're not going to do like the full 30, right? 20 years at an estimated 8% interest. Okay. That's $120,000 that you are going to have in retirement if it's 20 years away. Welcome to the Teacher Money Show, the podcast dedicated to helping teachers navigate your unique financial challenges and unlock your financial superpowers. I'm your host, Sean Morgan, a full-time educator and personal financial coach and speaker, and I'm here to help every teacher, whether you're a seasoned teacher looking for fresh insights or a new educator navigating your first paycheck, to have a richer wallet, classroom, and life. I'm super excited to be back here for another episode that's just me and you, to have another great conversation about frugal living, since that is our focus for this season. Before we do that, though, I just want to thank you guys for listening to the show. And I want to make sure that you continue to listen. So I'm asking you to please subscribe to the show if you haven't already. And you can leave a rating and review anywhere that you do that for whatever you're listening on. I know there's many, many ways to do that these days. I just wanted to get this message out to as many teachers as possible. So please go ahead and do those simple actions right now so that way we can continue to grow this show and help more teachers become financially empowered. Now on to our discussion of the little three. You guys might remember we had a brief discussion of this with me and Jerry Bourne a few episodes back, where he mentioned the little three. I loved this concept so much I wanted to do an entire episode on the little three. The little three are simply the things that are happening in the background that are slowly stealing your wealth, not in a large fashion, but in a small way that are easy to fix. The little three are your cable/streaming services, your internet, and your cell phone. These things seem like necessities. People call the internet a utility now because of how integrated it is into our life. Cell phones are definitely right there, right behind it. Streaming services are like the number one way people have recreation and de-stress. So these things are essential to most people's lives, and they're also slowly taking your wealth. We need to understand how big of a deal these little three are. These subscriptions to these services are. So if you're an average American, you're probably doing 3 or 4 streaming services. That comes out to about $75 a month. This is just an average, a guess on my part. Internet costs around $90 a month in many instances, and a cell phone for 2 lines can be around $150 a month for most people. We're talking about $315 a month that you are spending on these things. Now, that comes out to $3,780 a year, which is over 10 years, $37,800. Now, we're not talking about investing that or growth on anything. That's just the amount that you are spending on these services over 10 years. Now, what would happen if you invested that money? That is the question to ask. But we don't want to invest all of it because we still want these services. So let's make sure we understand what we're trying to do here. We are not trying to eliminate joy. We are not trying to live a Spartan lifestyle. We're not trying to deconnect from the world around us. We just want to overcome the inertia that is keeping us paying for things that we might not even need. This set it and forget it pricing of subscriptions, where we can have subscriptions that go and go and go that we aren't using, is what we need to take back into our power, our possession, and our control. I have a friend whose parents discovered years later that they'd been paying $5 a month for a gaming subscription that he had had when he was in his like early teens and he was in his 20s when they did that, and he had not played it since his early teens. They just had been paying for that service that entire time because they weren't paying attention. So we need to take control of these expenses because they can just slowly eat away at our finances. So let's talk about what we can do to take control of each of these things. We'll start with the first one, cable and streaming. Now I'm bundling these together, but cable and streaming are definitely two different things. So you either have cable or you have multiple streaming services or both, and that's a problem, okay? Because do you really need both? Is it essential to your life? And it's expensive each one you add on to that. And then sometimes you even forget you have these subscriptions and they just sit there unused. So, what can we do to take control of our cable and streaming? The first thing is to figure out what you are paying for. Are you paying for cable? Are you paying for multiple streaming services? And think through them. I would go even more extreme than that. I would find all of them and I would cancel every single one immediately. Now, you might be like, whoa, I thought you said we weren't going to do that. Yes, I, we're doing that. But I want you to first cancel everything and then start adding things back. When you miss something, you say, huh, I really miss this thing. You can add that back into your life. It's like I miss having, just a time to sit and watch Netflix or watch Disney Plus with my kids or whatever it is. I miss having that piece. You bring that back into your life. Okay. But you don't just let the inertia keep pushing you forward. So cancel everything, your cable, your streaming services, all of, three or four of them, and then ask yourself, which one do you miss the most? If you miss none of them, don't add any of them back in. You only are adding back in what you really intentionally want in your life. That is a beautiful thing because then you can start doing the second step, which is the rotation strategy. If you only watch one show at a time, which most people do, maybe two, uh, you shouldn't need three or four services. Two would be the maximum you would need. But if you can keep it down to just one, let's say you're watching just a single show and you keep just that service while you're watching that show, the show ends, you cancel service as soon as the show is over. And then you say, oh, I want to watch this show now. So you go on to the next streaming services and you re-up on that one and you watch until that one's done. You binge your show, whatever. But when you're done, you cancel it again. And you always cancel as soon as the show is over. Now, here's a few reasons to do that. One, usually when you're starting service, you can get the best rates. However, canceling or threatening to cancel can also get you really good rates, just something to keep in mind. But when you cancel, then you are intentionally deciding what you want to do next, what you want to watch next. It's not just, oh, I'm going to keep it just in case. No, you're saying this is what I want to spend my time on. And if you find yourself doing other things, then do other things. You don't have to have these streaming services. It's not required to have those. So just keep that in mind that the subscriptions don't have to, keep going year after year for you to use them. You can cancel them and restart them at any time. So that rotation strategy allows you to minimize going from $75 a month or more with cable, because cable can be stupid expensive, down to $15 a month, something like that, is a huge cut because you're doing that. And sometimes you don't even need to have a subscription because there are free services through your library, like Canopy and Hoopla. They don't always have the newest and greatest shows, but if you just want something to watch to unwind, you don't have to have the newest and the greatest. You can do free trials, although those can get onerous because you have to set reminders and cancel them and so forth. So I don't really like this strategy because then they know if you've had a free trial before because they have your email and you have to like use different emails. It seems kind of like a loophole that's not exactly honest. I am all for paying for the service when you're using it. But if you want to just, test a show out, free trials, and then setting a reminder to cancel it so you don't have to start paying for that subscription are a great way to do it. Just keeping that as two options that are free, or just using your library. Your library often has shows and movies in physical copy that you can use to get your fix for some television, and then you're done, right? You don't have to keep the subscription. So if you are keeping one subscription, and then honestly, I don't see any reason why you need cable. If you have a very like powerful reason to need cable television, please send me an email. I want to hear it. But most people use it for background noise, or it's just on constantly, or it's something that you're using to watch these shows. But most of the shows can also be found through the streaming services for these companies. If you're watching sports, why not just use ESPN? If you're watching a show that's also on Peacock, why not just get Peacock instead of using your cable? There are lots of different ways that you can approach it, but most of them don't require TV. In fact, YouTube TV has actually eclipsed cable as being the most used TV service. So you might want to look into something like that instead, because it is usually cheaper than your cable service. So I would say that you could probably get this down to between $15 and $30 a month. Instead of the 75 to $150 a month that a lot of people are paying for these things. So I'm going to say $15 a month because I think that's doable for anybody. Maybe 2025, but let's say we're going from 75 to $15 a month if we implement this correctly. So we're saving $60 on our streaming services. Now let's move on to the little two, the second one, the internet. Okay, this one is something that a lot of people don't think about. They say, "What do you mean? It's internet. You pay for it. You got to have it. You can't do this, rotational strategy." But here's the thing: you often signed up using a promotional price, but that price expires usually after 6 months to a year, and you think, "Well, my internet has gone more expensive." Not true. You can renegotiate. That is a huge thing that you can do. And then there's also like equipment rentals that go into this that might not be necessary, and you might just be overpaying in general. So here's something to consider. Your promotional pricing is they're making money on it. They're making money on your promotional pricing, so you don't have to pay full price. And they can still make money and you can just spend less money. The way you do this is you call them and say, "Hey, I noticed that my price went up this year. Because of that, I am considering changing to a different service." And they say, "Oh no, what if I just gave you the promotional price again?" And you say, "Hey, that would be great." And they give you the promotional price, your internet drops back down to where it was before, and now you're paying less money. And all it took was a 15-minute phone call. It is a easy win. They might even have additional promotions. You can say, "Hey, do you have any other promotions that I qualify for before I leave? I would like to stay, but I will leave." It's very important that you tell them that you are considering moving to a different service if I can't get my cost down. You can even compare it to another competitor and say, "Well, this competitor is offering this price. What can you do for me?" If you don't want to use that competitor, then it's kind of harder because then you don't really have that desire to switch. But if you're willing to switch to the competitor, then you really have all of the cards in your hand. They don't have anything they can do to stop you other than lowering the price and trying to match that competitor. Uh, it is a hugely beneficial thing to just give them a call. The internet pricing is never the cheapest. The phone call to the customer service representative is the cheapest. I just did this the other day. I called my internet provider and I told them, "Hey, I noticed that I think I just got double charged on something. Actually, it wasn't even that their rate had gone up. I got double charged on this." And like, "Oh yeah, you're right, you did." And they said, "I'll get rid of that." And they said, "I noticed that you qualify for this promotion." I'm like, "That's great. I love that promotion." "Oh, and if you go and change from credit card to, bank draft, you qualify for this promotion." That's great. And I went from paying $35 a month to $15 a month because I called and asked. And it's a huge win for me to go, $20 extra dollars a month in my pocket just for calling them. And just as another side note, before that, I was with another company and I was on a promotional rate with them for $56 and it went up to 75 and I'd called them and went back down to 56. But then I realized that I could move to this other people, move down to 35, and then I called them and went down to 15. So I've gone from $75 a month in internet to $15 a month in internet. And it hasn't really affected my quality of life much. I'll talk about that with in a minute, but it's made a huge difference in my budget because I'm not spending all this money just to stream a show occasionally and to use the internet. Like if I'm not doing high speed gaming or huge uploads and downloads constantly. I don't need that. So I was able to really cut back on my internet by just calling and asking for these promotional rates. And I locked it in for 3 years. It's all about the phone call. Please be willing to make a phone call. Now, a lot of these places rent a router to you, but the cost is like $10 or $15 a month to rent the router when you can just like pay like $100 to buy one or $200 even. But like even if it's $200, if it's $15 a month, just over a year in, you're going to have paid for that by not renting it. So make sure that you are looking at each piece of your bill. Are you renting the router or are you paying it off? Because if you're paying it off, then that's great because then you'll own it at some point and your cost will go down. Are you paying for services you don't need? I called my internet provider a few years back and realized I was paying for all sorts of services I was not using. And I was able to save about $20 by just saying, I don't need that service. I don't need that service. Like a landline. I don't use a landline. Why would I need a landline? Like you're charging me $7 a month for a landline I'm not using, right? These are the types of things that we can do by just calling, reviewing the bill, putting in that little extra effort can put more money into our pockets every single month. Now, the next thing that I was just alluding to is your speed. Sometimes they are offering these, oh, you can get, this advanced speed for, this much more, and it's so great. But I mean, if you're just streaming a show on Netflix and grading papers, you don't need 1 gig. Like they bill it as the next greatest, biggest, best thing. You need this. It's so good, but like you don't need it. I teach online. I am constantly on Zoom and using, Zoom and a YouTube video at the same time and sharing my screen and doing something else over here to make sure that the students are on track. And I'm doing multiple things that are, pretty internet intensive. And I'm using the cheapest internet in my area. And occasionally it feels slow. Occasionally it feels slow. So the point I'm making here is you don't need super high-end internet unless you are doing huge uploads and downloads or doing like, high top tier gaming and you can't have any lag. It's just not necessary. So check your internet. Are you getting the top tier or could you, go down to, the bottom tier internet and save, 20, 30, $40 on your internet as a result? I would highly recommend that you downgrade and see if you notice the difference. If you do, just slowly ramp it up because even though the price per megabits or whatever you want to say is better at the gig, right? Because you go from like, 30 to 35 to 40 and you're like, oh man, it doubled for only 10 more bucks. But do you need it, right? That is the real question. So those are just some things to consider. Look at your bill, ask them to take things off your bill that you don't need to pay for, ask about promotions, downgrade your speed. All those things can take you from paying, 60, 70, 80, $90 for internet or more down to in the 30s or even lower. Like I said, I got down to $15 a month just by calling in. So always check for that. And then the third of the little three, cell phones. This one is something that we can't live without a cell phone these days. It feels like you've got to have that connectivity. You've got to have the ability to contact one another. It's just people expect you to be on a cell phone. A lot of work requires us to have a cell phone. They want to be able to contact you for an emergency situation sometimes and not just use the landlines at the school. Like there's just so many reasons why cell phones are necessary to be integrated into our life. But that doesn't mean we have to overspend on our cell phone plans. So if you're going with one of these big carriers and they're talking about, oh, you get all this, all these benefits, all these free things. The question is, are you are you really getting the benefit from using and being loyal to these large carriers? And then another question is financing. Are you financing a phone? Is it worth it to finance the phone and often be stuck with these big carriers who are giving it to you for free? Terms and conditions may apply. And then we also have, your unlimited plan. How necessary is that? And our insurance costs for our devices. Do we need insurance on our phones? So let's talk about each of these things. The first thing is stop financing your phone. Okay. The phone is a tool. It does not need to be the latest and greatest to be an effective tool. I cannot think of a single reason why a teacher would need the newest iPhone every 2 years. Okay, it's just an absurd expense. If you have a good reason that you think a teacher needs the newest iPhone every 2 years that you have to finance, and it's, $1,500 iPhone that's going to cost you $100 a month, send me an email. Sean, Shaun, at teachermoneyshow.com. I want to hear your reason. It's completely unnecessary. So I would say keep your phone for 3 to 5 years. Let it get a little janky, okay? Then buy a refurbished phone or a new older model and use cash. Pay for it outright. This is going to save you money in the long run by leaps and bounds because these big companies are just trying to lure you in with the free, newest, latest, greatest. Stay with them because they have huge costs. These large companies who are building all this infrastructure for their cell phones, the satellites, the towers, all that stuff, they have huge costs. So they need to keep and retain customers to cover those huge costs. And they lure you in with the phone that they offer for free if you stay with them for a certain number of years. And then they charge you a premium for that. I remember that I was getting charged over $100 a month uh, with between me and my wife on a group plan. Like, and there are other people in the plan, and they were getting charged, like $100 a month, and it was just an absurdly high amount that we were paying, and we were using hardly anything of that plan. So that's when we started to look into different options and we stepped away from the loyalty and then the new phone and all that stuff. And we said we're going to keep these phones until they break or we need, a new one. Like for example, my camera broke and I was using it to scan things constantly, so I had to get a new phone in that case. My wife dropped her phone into a water park and it broke. Like things like that are what made us move into buying another device, not a new device, another device. But you keep the phone until it doesn't work anymore. That is the way to go. So we just said we're not going to get the finance phone and we're going to look into other options. These other options are mobile virtual network operators. You guys have heard of the big one, Mint, right? There's also Visible and there's many others. There's one called Helium, which I don't use because I have such a good option for what I'm doing right now. But they have like a free, literally free plan if you don't use above a certain number of gigs, which is huge. That's crazy. So, I mean, you can look into all sorts of different options. And the interesting thing about these companies is they don't have that overhead because they are leasing. They're paying the big companies to use their towers. So, it's not public knowledge, but everyone knows it. Mint is just T-Mobile. Okay. Mint pays T-Mobile to then offer T-Mobile's network to everybody else. Visible is provided by Verizon, which I don't understand how they do this. They say Visible by Verizon, but then they offer you the same service for a significantly reduced price. It's crazy to me that people aren't just using the other version of Verizon. So like there's just these different options. Like, to get an unlimited plan with Verizon, we're talking about, like $90 a month, something like that. I haven't shopped in a while, but it's a high amount. And I have Visible, which only offers an unlimited plan, and it's $25 a month. Why would I use the regular Verizon when I can use Visible and get the same thing basically? I don't get like Verizon perks, but like who cares? Okay. I'm just in it for the cell phone. And that is just an easy way to save money. I did try Mint, but the service was just so bad where I am. T-Mobile just doesn't work in the middle of nowhere, West Texas. So I haven't used them, but like there are great options out there that are inexpensive. You just need to try them and see which one works best for you to really cut down your cell phone costs. And then speaking of those usage rates and the unlimited data, do you really need unlimited data? I'm using unlimited just because Visible doesn't offer anything else, and it's super cheap. And I use the unlimited for various things that I do. I need it just occasionally, and I'm like, well, it's cheap anyway. But I used to only pay for like 3 gigs a person, and when I did that, I found I was more intentional about using my phone. just when I'm out and about, which is great because I'm actually not going to be sitting there like, oh, I'm at the grocery store in line. I'm going to just, scroll and, watch videos, whatever. No, I have to be more intentional about when I use my data, which I think is a really good practice. And I found I didn't really need it, mostly because I spend 95% of my time on Wi-Fi. I don't need the unlimited data because I'm constantly at home or at school or somewhere that offers free Wi-Fi. I mean, like I think Walmart even offers free Wi-Fi. If I really needed it, I can get into the Walmart Wi-Fi, or I'd go to Home Depot and I need to look something up and I just get on the Home Depot Wi-Fi and I can look something up. It's so easy to find Wi-Fi these days. You only need data when you are out and about, roaming. And even if you like queue up your map before you go somewhere when you're on Wi-Fi, the location doesn't use data. That's like a safety feature. They have to have the location not use data. So that's why you can use you can see your location in a lot of instances, even if you're like on airplane mode, and it's kind of crazy how that's kind of disconnected. But the point is that you can turn on your map, leave, and drive the whole distance following that route. And as long as you're not, detouring it needs to recalculate, it will take you there without using your data. So there's a lot of things that we think probably use data that don't, and we don't really need that higher gig amount in most cases. Now, if you go down to 3 gigs and you're finding you're constantly hitting that limit, then you can go up. They usually have like a 5 gig tier. Okay. If you're constantly hitting that limit, you can ask yourself, why am I hitting this limit so much? Sometimes it's because they offer Wi-Fi assistance for with your data. They say, oh, if the Wi-Fi is not strong enough, we'll throw in some data to give it a boost. And that's kind of a way that they get you to think you need unlimited. But if you turn that off, you just say, well, it's going a little slow. Oh, well. And you learn to live with that. And you can significantly cut your costs by using just the lower gig amount. So that is a huge, huge win if you can just keep your gigs low. And then lastly, they offer insurance for phones. I think if you're careful, you probably don't even need it. Um, Especially if you're buying a phone in cash, right? You don't have like a payoff for like a finance phone or anything like that. Most of the time, you're going to keep that phone for a long enough period that you don't need insurance on it. The rule of thumb is if the replacement cost is less than 6 months of premiums, it doesn't really make sense. Uh, but I just say don't pay for it. It's not like, health insurance that will, go be catastrophic and uh, put you in huge amounts of debt. If you've got an emergency fund on hand, that can handle your insurance, quote unquote, for your phone. Just take good care of it and you'll be fine. These are simple things we can do to cut our phone costs. So let's say that you put all these things into place. So we started at $75 a month in streaming, and we cut down to one service at $15 a month. That's $60 in savings. Then we found internet that was $30 a month. Now you might be like, no, that's not possible. Okay, I'm just giving you some example numbers here. We went from 90 to 30, $60 a month. So we're at $120 a month in savings. You had $150 a month in cell phone and you implemented all these things and you went down to 50, which is what I pay. I pay $50 a month for 2 phones on unlimited service, guys. This is totally possible. Okay, so that's another $100. So we've got $220 a month that we've just put into our pocket. What can you do with that? Well, you can invest it. Now, you can do other things with it, but if you invest $220 a month for 20 years, we're not going to do like the full 30, right? 20 years at an estimated 8% interest. Okay. That's $120,000 that you are going to have in retirement if it's 20 years away. And remember that if you're doing this every single month and you're investing that money, even after you've retired, okay, that's going to keep growing because your retirement horizon continues after you retire. You're going to keep needing money. So that continues to compound for 20, 30, 40 years, maybe even 50 years, depending on where you are at in your time horizon for retirement. So please keep these things in mind. There are so many things that we can do to cut our costs if we are intentional and we don't just let inertia push us forward. The little three turn out to be a big chunk of that final number that you need in retirement to retire with dignity, especially when you have a pension that's covering the majority of your costs. Just that extra $120,000 in your back pocket backing you up is huge. I challenge you to take the next 7 days to do that subscription audit, cut it out, remove everything, and then only bring things back in. Call your internet provider on the phone and figure out what promotions you have that can get you down, or look for alternatives. Price out new cell phone plans, specifically with those alternative cell phone provider options at a lower rate. And cancel as much as you can to get more money in your pocket, but don't just put it in your pocket. Put it into your brokerage, put it into your retirement, and get that money growing for you. And as you let it grow, you will end up rather rich. But remember, as a teacher, you are already rich. Your wallet just needs to catch up. If you would like help on your personal financial situation, go to teachermoneyshow.com/coaching and you'll be able to find different ways that I can help you there. If you would like to participate in spreading this message of financial empowerment to teachers, I would encourage you to talk to your administrator or to your district level about going to SeanKMorgan.com to find more information there. And regardless of which one of those you need, please like and subscribe so that way we can spread the reach of this more. Leave a 5-star rating and review. That's going to help more teachers find this. And then turn around and tell a teacher friend. I really appreciate it.
The contents of this podcast are informational in nature and are not legal or tax advice. And neither I nor my guests are engaged in the provision of legal, tax, or any other advice. You should not act upon this information without first seeking appropriate advice from an accountant, financial planner, lawyer, or other professional.